Three wildfires appeared around Spokane, Washington in the same afternoon. In the days that followed, 67,000 people were ordered to evacuate, and investigators now say one of those fires was planned. That is not a movie plot. It is what happened in Spokane and Stevens County in August 2026. On the morning of August 1st, eastern Washington was already under a rare, particularly dangerous situation red flag warning, the first of its kind ever issued in Washington state. Meteorologists were warning that any fire could spread explosively. The air was extremely dry. Temperatures were high. Wind gusts were expected to approach 45 miles per hour. Then the first fire appeared, the Old Trails Fire near Airway Heights on Spokane's western edge. Not long after that, the Autumn Lane Fire ignited near 9 Mile Falls. Then came the Fairview Fire near Meade on the north side of Spokane. Look at a map. West, northwest, north. The fires were not in one place. They formed a rough arc around the city. That is what made this emergency so unusual. Firefighters were not facing one advancing wildfire. They were responding to multiple fast-moving fires threatening different communities at nearly the same time. By evening, smoke was covering Spokane. Evacuation alerts were spreading across phones. Traffic was backing up as families tried to leave. Many residents thought they would be gone for a few hours. Some would return to find their homes gone. The speed of the disaster shocked even experienced firefighters. Early damage reports spoke of dozens of structures lost. Then the number climbed into the hundreds. Later assessments pushed the total past 900. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to blackened foundations, and this was happening in and around a city of more than 200,000 people. This was not a remote forest fire. This was wildfire entering suburbs. Roughly 67,000 people were ordered to evacuate, nearly a quarter of Spokane's population. For a regional wildfire emergency in Washington, that number was extraordinary. And the crisis was only beginning.
As the fires spread, Spokane entered emergency mode. Shelters opened across the region. Families arrived carrying pets, medications, photographs, and whatever they could grab in a few minutes. Imagine leaving your house, not knowing whether it would still exist when you came back. The emergency did not stop at Spokane's city limits. Fire operations expanded north into Stevens County, linking the urban disaster to a wider regional wildfire corridor. What began as a city emergency was becoming a multi-county wildfire event. Meanwhile, firefighters were battling conditions that changed minute by minute. Strong winds pushed flames through grass, brush, and timber. Embers were carried ahead of the fire front. Crews would establish a line, only to see new spot fires ignite beyond it. Wind was turning single fires into moving targets. The scale became so severe that Washington's congressional delegation was told the region was, in their words, at the highest wildfire risk in the nation, and the most heavily resourced. Firefighting strike teams from California were sent north to help protect homes and infrastructure. Think about that for a moment. California crews were sent to Washington because Spokane had become one of the most urgent wildfire fights in the country. One of the most striking facts about the disaster is that, despite the massive evacuation and widespread destruction, officials had reported no fatalities from the Spokane area fires as of August 7th. That outcome was not luck alone. It reflected rapid evacuation orders, emergency coordination, and the willingness of residents to leave when told to go. But the emotional damage was impossible to measure. Residents walked through neighborhoods where streets were recognizable, but homes were not. Chimneys stood alone in fields of ash. Cars were melted into driveways. And for many people in Spokane County, this was not the first time they had seen wildfire devastation. In 2023, the Gray Fire destroyed hundreds of structures and killed one person. The memory of that disaster was still fresh. So when evacuation orders arrived in 2026, people understood what wind-driven wildfire could do. For several days, firefighters fought around the clock. Then cooler weather arrived. Containment lines began to hold. The headlines started to sound more hopeful. But firefighters kept warning that hotter, drier conditions could return, and if the wind returned with them, the fires could become dangerous again. Wildfire is not a single event. It is a constant negotiation between weather, fuel, terrain, and time.
Then the story took a darker turn. On August 3rd, authorities arrested Aaron Farinacci, a 37-year-old Spokane man, in connection with the Old Trails fire, the largest of the three. At first, he denied it. Then, according to court records filed days later, he confessed. He told detectives he had planned the fire 2 weeks in advance. Court documents say Farinacci used a weather app to search for a day with high winds, low humidity, and high heat, and settled on August 1st, the day the region was already under its rare, particularly dangerous situation warning. Investigators say he had also studied the methods of a known serial arsonist and researched how to build a delayed ignition device. The Old Trails fire itself, however, was determined by investigators to have been started with a simple open flame, consistent with a lighter or a match. I need to be precise here. Farinacci has been charged with 5 counts of first-degree arson. He has not been convicted. No plea has been entered, and his defense has requested a mental competency evaluation. But according to the same court filings, he did not stop at confessing to this one fire. He told detectives he had set roughly 24 other fires over the previous year. Investigators also said the 2 other major Spokane fires, Autumn Lane and Fairview, were human-caused, though not necessarily deliberately, and remained under separate investigation. Officials were clear on one point: none of the 3 fires were started by lightning. That detail matters because many people instinctively assume a major wildfire began with a storm. In this case, authorities say the weather didn't start the fire. Someone was watching the weather, waiting for it. So what actually happened in Spokane and Stevens County? The obvious answer is simple. Bad weather caused a wildfire. The examined answer is more complicated. Extreme weather created the opportunity. Urban growth placed thousands of homes beside flammable land. Multiple fires ignited around the city within a narrow window of time. And by his own admission, at least one of those fires was chosen, timed, and lit on purpose. That combination is what made Spokane different. This was not only a natural disaster. It was a test of how quickly a modern American city can be pushed into emergency mode when weather, geography, and human intent collide. And that is why this story matters far beyond Washington. Across the American West, more people are living in the wildland-urban interface, where neighborhoods meet grasslands, brush, and forest. Spokane may be less an exception than a warning. When historians look back at this event, they may not remember the exact acreage burned. They may remember that an unprecedented fire weather warning was issued, and within hours, fires appeared around the edges of a major city. And that one man later told police he had been waiting for exactly that warning. The warning came first, then the fires, then the evacuation. And within a single weekend, tens of thousands of people learned how quickly ordinary life can disappear when fire finds the perfect conditions, and when someone decides to use them. That is the story of the Spokane and Stevens County wildfires.